Welcome back to my YouTube channel and thank you for following our series on the kings of medieval England. In our last episode, we explored the long and often troubled reign of Henry III, a king who ruled for over 50 years, saw England racked by civil war, and left behind a legacy of parliamentary reform. Today, we turn to his son, Edward I, one of England's most formidable medieval rulers, known as the Hammer of the Scots, and remembered for both his legal reforms and brutal campaigns. Edward reshaped the English monarchy through war, governance, and law. Let's begin. Edward was born on June 17, 1239, at the Palace of Westminster. Tall and imposing, he grew to over 6 feet in height. He was known for his strong will, sharp intellect, and martial ability. Named after the Anglo-Saxon Saint King Edward the Confessor, young Edward was raised in the midst of political unrest. During the Second Barons' War, he was taken prisoner by Simon de Montfort but escaped, and played a key role in the royalist victory at the Battle of Evesham in 1265. According to Michael Prestwich's Edward I, Edward developed into a determined and pragmatic leader, one who combined chivalric ideals with ruthless efficiency. In 1270, Edward departed on crusade to the Holy Land. Though his military achievements were limited, the crusade helped shape his image as a pious warrior king. News of his father's death reached him in 1272, but Edward returned slowly, only arriving in England in 1274 to assume the throne. Edward's early reign focused on strengthening royal authority and reforming governance. Drawing inspiration from his father's failures, Edward sought to restore justice and order. Between 1275 and 1290, he issued a series of legal statutes that laid the foundations of English common law. These included the Statute of Westminster in 1275, which codified many existing laws and asserted that the king's peace applied across the realm. The Statute of Gloucester in 1278 enabled the crown to reclaim lands unlawfully held by nobles. The Second Statute of Westminster in 1285 introduced de donis conditionalibus, ensuring estates passed down strictly to heirs, limiting land fragmentation, and the Statute of Quia Emptores in 1290 restricted subinfeudation and stabilized the feudal system by allowing tenants to sell land only with the rights and responsibilities intact. As historian Paul Brand notes in Kings, Barons and Justices, Edward's legal reforms were not just administrative. They were a conscious effort to centralize power and assert royal supremacy through law. Edward also restructured Parliament. In 1295, he summoned what became known as the Model Parliament, including bishops, barons, knights and burgesses. While this was not the first assembly of its kind, it set a precedent for broader representation in future parliaments. Edward's most successful military campaign was against Wales. Llywelyn ap Gruffydd, the Prince of Wales, had refused to pay homage to Edward and was defiant in his autonomy. In 1277, Edward launched a campaign that forced Llywelyn to submit. But peace did not last. A renewed Welsh rebellion in 1282 led to a massive invasion. Llywelyn was killed that year and his brother Dafydd was captured and executed in 1283. Edward then annexed Wales through the Statute of Rhuddlan in 1284 by introducing English law and governance. He also began constructing a network of formidable castles, like Caernarfon, Conwy and Harlech, designed to enforce control and symbolize English dominance. Historian Mark Morris, in A Great and Terrible King, describes Edward's conquest of Wales as a brilliant and brutal exercise in medieval state-building. One of Edward's most controversial acts was the expulsion of the Jews from England in 1290. Jews had been subject to persecution and increasing restrictions throughout the 13th century. Edward had previously taxed them heavily and barred them from many professions. In 1290 he issued an edict expelling all Jews from the kingdom. As Robin Mundell discusses in England's Jewish Solution, this was a politically popular move that also cleared the way for Edward to levy new taxes from his Christian subjects. The expulsion would remain in effect until the 1650s, making England the first major European kingdom to enact such a long-term measure. Edward's most enduring legacy lies in his wars with Scotland. After the death of King Alexander III in 1286 and his granddaughter Margaret in 1290, Scotland was left without a clear heir. Edward was invited to arbitrate among the claimants in what became known as the Great Cause. He chose John Balliol in 1292, but insisted that Balliol recognise him as overlord. Balliol eventually rebelled against Edward's dominance, leading to war. Edward invaded Scotland in 1296, deposed Balliol, and seized the Stone of Scone, a symbolic act of domination. Resistance soon emerged under William Wallace, who defeated the English at the Battle of Stirling Bridge in 1297. But Edward crushed Wallace's forces at the Battle of Falkirk in 1298 and later had him captured and executed in 1305. Edward's final campaign to subdue Scotland began in 1306, following the coronation of Robert the Bruce. But Edward, now aging and ill, died on July 7, 1307 at Berg by Sands near the Scottish border while marching north. Edward I was buried at Westminster Abbey with the inscription Edwardus primus Scotorum malleus, pactum serva Edward I, Hammer of the Scots, keep the faith. So how should we remember Edward? He was one of England's most formidable medieval kings, a builder of castles, a reformer of law, and a tireless warrior. But he was also ruthless, often harsh in his treatment of enemies and minorities. As Michael Prestwich concludes in Edward I, Edward combined high ideals of kingship with a readiness to use force. He believed in order, authority, and the divinely sanctioned role of monarchy. But he never forgot that the sword was his tool of last resort, and often his first. Edward's reign marked a turning point in English history. His legal reforms laid the foundations of common law. His conquests redefined the map of Britain, and his wars with Scotland triggered centuries of conflict that would shape national identities. In our next episode, we'll explore the reign of his son, Edward II, a king who inherited a powerful kingdom but lacked the character to hold it together. His troubled rule would lead to rebellion, deposition, and one of the most mysterious deaths in English royal history. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and join us as we continue the story of England's medieval kings.